got a group of people, a group of executives here at GM that have really spent the last several years working on sort of reinventing Cadillac and making sure that the name Cadillac means something. So part of that was a Cadillac component needs to be a Cadillac component. You can't go into a Chevy, all due respect to Chevy, and see the same component in there because now it's not a Cadillac. So when you get inside the LYRIQ, you will not see, feel, or touch a single component that you can find in another vehicle.
To me, a Cadillac is, at least today, a CT5V Blackwing manual. No one else makes anything like that. No one else will make anything like that going forward. I felt what Bob Boniface did with the design of the CT6 was stunning. But your remit was very different. What are like 3 massive challenges you had in bringing a LYRIQ to life?
The LYRIQ literally started as a piece of white paper. There was nothing. This is the very first program off of our all-new EV architecture. So it was literally blank piece of paper. What do we want to do? What does this vehicle want to be?
Will it share its platform with other GM products?
It will. So other GM product will build off of it.
Like what?
If you look at some of our future Chevy, some of our future Buick EV portfolios, GMCs.
So like Chevy Blazer kind of thing?
Exactly. It'll take the skateboard, if you will, right? The LTM architecture and the skateboard of the vehicle, and then it will build up a unique platform from there, a unique vehicle off of that platform.
Okay, so you're not just tasked with a car, you're tasked with developing a whole platform.
Create the architecture and then create the top half on top of it. The architecture then gets shared. The top half becomes unique then to your product.
So what does that become a challenge in terms of translating that into a Cadillac?
For me, I think one of the biggest challenges was making sure that everybody that was working on the product understood that the number one priority was to make the best Cadillac we've ever made. It happens to be powered by an electric propulsion system. But the Cadillac aspect of it, to me, was the number one most important factor.
Is Cadillac to you a DeVille, or is it a CT5E manual Blackwing?
It's yes.
Okay.
It's a little bit of both. So we wanted the riding, the dynamics, the handling, the performance. We wanted to stay really faithful to the Cadillac DNA of performance, but we wanted to kind of go back and grab a couple of those sort of cues of what Cadillac used to stand for and get back into the mode of luxury. I think over time we lost a little bit of the luxury in Cadillac. We were really determined to bring the luxury back. So if you sit in the vehicle and you look at the materials that we use in the interior of the Cadillac. If you sit in the seats, the amount of time and energy that we spent, these are all new seats from the metal structure all the way up through the trim cover of the seats to make sure that they are comfortable, to make sure that they have that contour, that ride performance, the hugging characteristics, but still sort of that Cadillac cushiness that you would expect. The floor trim, the attention to details, the knurling on all of the
so let's get
knobs.
very specific about this.
Yeah.
You know we have mutual friends, Bob
Yes.
Boniface, Phil Zach.
Yeah.
They know I am a detail freak.
Okay.
Tactile feels a big thing.
Yep.
One of the best cars to drive nowadays is a CT4V Blackwing manual. Fantastic car to drive. The CT4V, not the Blackwing, horrific interior.
Okay.
But the Blackwing, if you get the $5,000 interior package with the cool Blackwing seats, it's actually a nice place to be. But there's still remnants of the terrible CT4V interior. How is it different with a LYRIQ?
Let me give you an example. When you talk about tactile feel, we have a brand new multifunction controller that's in the center console area. In fact, all of the controls in the LYRIQ are all brand new. First time use, Cadillac only, not used on any other
So
product.
it's not going to be like a UX that we see in a Chevy?
Nope, not at all. These
Who
are
came up with that
all-
idea? You, Simco, who?
We've got a group of people, a group of executives here at GM that have really spent the last several years working on sort of reinventing Cadillac and making sure that the name Cadillac means something. So part of that was a Cadillac component needs to be a Cadillac component. You can't go into a Chevy, all due respect to Chevy, and see the same component in there because now it's not a Cadillac. So when you get inside the LYRIQ, you will not see, feel, or touch a single component that you can find in another vehicle.
So tactile feel of like the A-pillar, but also the UX when I see it.
The UX when you see it, the feel of the multifunction controllers, the tuning of the detents, right? As you're twisting the MFC, you want that response, you want the detent tuning, you want that feedback. So where is that sweet spot between effort and feedback, right? That's the level of detail that we got into to make sure that it felt robust and it felt like a Cadillac and it felt intuitive, but that you also got that feedback, but you didn't have the efforts that were too high. And so you're constantly playing that game, finding that sweet spot and trying to define what does it mean to be a Cadillac to that level of detail.
In today's day and age, there's Teslas, which is basically a tablet in the middle of your car.
Yep.
And then there's BMW, which took hell in 2002 for their terrible iDrive system. But now I think it is literally the gold reference, because you've got the screens that the kids want nowadays, but you also have real knobs and switches.
Yeah.
Where did you fall on that with LYRIQ?
I would say we're somewhere in the middle. It was a lot of conversation that went on probably about 2.5 years ago. That's how far in advance you got to plan these things out. How much do you virtualize in your UX and your infotainment system, and how much do you do with hard controls? I'll say in a lot of cases what we ended up doing was both. So we are giving customers a lot of choice, a lot of options. So for example, your HVAC system, you can manage your HVAC controls through your infotainment screen, but we also gave you the hard buttons.
So I got a fan controller?
Yep.
A real fan controller?
A real, so you can
up
and down your fan speed. You can up and down your temperature.
Let's be clear about this. It's a button that depresses, not something that's...
It's a toggle button.
Okay.
So you can push it up and down.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, outside the vehicle.
Yes.
What were some of the... You talked about some points on the inside that made it a Cadillac. And what is it on the outside of the vehicle?
Well, obviously our signature vertical lighting. I mean, we still have that. We will always have that. But we took it to the next level with our Slimline LED. And I'm not sure if anyone's walked you through that technology, but it is the smallest LEDs for OEM lighting in the industry. And so what we're able to do is we're able to stack them, and we're able to get a lot more customization, especially from a choreography perspective, with that lighting. The other thing that I think was probably a difficulty, but I think it's turned into an asset for us, was the importance of aerodynamics on this program, because it is an EV, but still wanting to make sure that we respected the design theme of the vehicle. And so if you go back and you look at what the show car was, and then you look at the production LYRIQ, you'd be hard-pressed to find any differences, but there are subtle changes that were made to make sure that we're able to enable the aerodynamics that we needed to get the range on the vehicle, which is outstanding, by the way. I'm super proud of where we ended up from a vehicle range. What is it? 312 miles on our rear-wheel drive variant.
And what's the capacity of the battery?
It's a 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack, but from a usable battery energy perspective, we're actually getting more like 105, 106 kilowatt-hours out of it. Okay.
Just so the audience knows, you and I are going to talk completely different episode on Ultium and batteries.
Okay.
So we're not skipping it over here. We're just leaving it because it's such an important thing for another episode.
Yep. But so things like our flow-through spoiler, right? If you look at the profile of the vehicle, we have a roof spoiler, which gives it that SUV look that was super important to us. But we know that a roof spoiler, in a lot of instances, can actually take away from aerodynamics. What we were able to figure out was if you make that roof spoiler flow through, meaning you've got vents within the roof spoiler so that the airflow can still kind of take on that egg-shaped form, even though the profile view of the vehicle still has that roof spoiler. You can get both now. You can get the profile view that Studio wants, but you can still maintain the aerodynamics that you need for range performance. Those were the things that we really worked through. How do we do yes and? How do we do yes and to the design and to the needs of the vehicle from an engineering perspective?
How long did this process take?
I've been on it for 4 years.
This is a very long time.
It takes a long time to start with a blank piece of paper and end up with a Cadillac LYRIQ.
We've covered now 2 aspects. I'd say there's a third we haven't covered, and that's what are some of the key points you wanted to put in dynamics?
So the dynamics of the vehicle is my favorite part, right? I mean, I love the design, I love the styling, but I'm still an engineer at the end of the day. It was really important that the dynamics of the vehicle had the Cadillac DNA from ride and handling perspective. So if you drive the vehicle, for example, we've got the battery pack. It's basically rail to rail, front to rear. So it really provides that super low center of gravity, that 50-50 weight distribution. So the vehicle feels really grounded, I guess I would say. As you're cornering, as you're going around turns, you're really the vehicle hugs the road, but it doesn't feel heavy.
You didn't really use exotic materials to lower the weight.
We have some, obviously we've used some aluminum. We do have various ultra high strength steel. And in fact, it's interesting. I think we actually did a pretty good job of combining, like in our battery tray, for example, you'll find different ultra high strength steel grades in there, depending on the need in that area of the battery pack, whether it be stiffness, structural performance, mass, etc. Our lift gate on the vehicle is composite, so we did go there. That enabled mass reduction, and also enabled us to really get the form that we were looking for out of the lift gate. So I'd say we did some mixing and matching of materials to get where we needed to be. But the battery itself is it's
can't get around it.
It's a heavy component, but it actually offers a really nice opportunity for us to increase the vehicle stiffness, because the way we designed our battery pack is it's a structural element of the vehicle. So it's tied into the underbody of the vehicle. So we're getting all that stiffness out of it. We're getting that center of gravity out of it. We're getting that really grounded feel to the vehicle.
And what did you do in terms of the components for the suspension in the front? What setup is it?
So we decided to go with a 5-link SLA front suspension. It's on a hard-mounted cradle.
That's actually not the cheap way to do it.
No, it's not. McPherson would have been much cheaper, but this is a Cadillac. The rear is also a 5-link. It's an independent rear suspension, and we did isolate the rear cradle. There was a lot of debate back and forth on the front
cradle.
cradle.
And the two-wheel drive's a rear drive?
It is. It's a rear drive.
Was that a debate?
No.
So that was set by management, or you said, no, I want rear drive?
No, it was set in the planning phases of the program. We knew we wanted this to be a rear-wheel drive, single-gear performance variant. And then when we get to all-wheel drive, that's when we add the front drive unit. So rear-wheel drive, you're looking at about 340 horsepower. Yeah, the front drive unit, you're up to 500 horsepower.
Torque in the all-wheel drive?
We have not announced torque in the all-wheel drive yet. 440 on the rear drive.
So this could be interesting.
It's fun.
Okay, so you've created something that's pretty important inside a Cadillac. I mean, frankly, it's going to pay the bills. Hope to pay the bills of Cadillac within the next 10 years. But here's the thing. You got a lot going on outside of these walls. We're in the tech center right now in General Motors. I'm going to give you some names here. Don't laugh at me, but I think they're competitors. You obviously have the Porsche. It's kind of above it. You got the EQS, also kind of above it, but same theory in that's a luxury car first, and then it's got an electric propulsion system. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, but I still think a competitor, Ioniq 5 and EV6. And then there's the Nissan Ariya. I haven't driven that one yet, so we can't talk too much about it. What kind of challenge does that present to you, where you're no longer just competing with an Audi, a BMW, and a Mercedes?
Drive the vehicle.
Wow. Very confident
I'm not worried. Drive the vehicle. It's amazing.
Okay, my viewers know that I am very particular and very honest when I drive a vehicle.
Great.
Because I told you to your face the inside of one of your cars was terrible.
I cannot wait for you to get in it.
Okay, I think we should drive it together, you and I.
Let's do it.
We're going to have an honest
I
think it's the first time we're going to I'm going to make, you know what? Renee, she's the boss. Renee will make it happen. Mike won't, but Renee definitely will. You're on.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Okay.
Deal.
All right.
See, the audience now sees it. You made a deal. Okay. So on that note, you've never been on the show, but first time you're on the show, this is where I turn the episode around to the audience, because we're going to get some feedback.
Okay.
Being that you kind of control the deck here and you're very direct, what kind of feedback do you want from the audience?
I'd love some feedback on what you're looking for a luxury vehicle. What does a luxury Cadillac mean to you? What is it that you're going to be looking for when you get in the LYRIQ for the first time? And then I'll tell you if it's there.
And you will be very direct, I'm sure.
I don't know how else to be.
Okay, if she's going to be direct with you guys, you need to be direct back with her in the comments below or via our social media. MotoManTV, all word, MotoManTV, all word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And with that, I do want to leave you with a little fun fact about Jamie here. Not only is her sister also a chief engineer here at General Motors, they both went to University of Michigan together. Take a guess where I had dinner last night.
In Ann Arbor?
Yes, ma'am.
Great place to be. Where'd you go?
One place. Zingerman's.
Oh, so good.
So good.
Roast beef.
As a matter of fact, I had, what was it? Wayne's Inheritance was the chicken one we had, and Diana's Decadence, the roast beef with the coleslaw and the 1,000-pound dressing.
And the big pickle.
Oh, huge.
Huge.
The pickle and the sandwich are bigger than your head.
The pickle's almost a meal.
Well, yeah, that's a bridge too far from me. Okay. I loved you up until that. On that note, until we see you in the next episode, bis später.